Good morning everyone. For today's topic, we will going to discuss about the 1987 Constitution, taxation, and agrarian reform policies. The Philippine Constitution is created by Filipinos for the Filipinos. We created the Constitution as creator. It is expected that we know every single information in it. That's why this document is being published and explained in every Philippine history books available, and even pamphlets, even if there were simple revisions. Also, this explains Article 3 of Civil Code, ignorance of the law excuses no one. And as well, the Philippine Constitution has evolved over the years. The Philippine Constitution has been through a lot of amendments seeking to uplift the Filipino people and stress the importance of freedom, independence, equality, and democracy.
Philippine Constitutions in editorials. The first image was an editorial made by the Philippine Free Press on January 21, 1933. It depicts the asedia of the Filipinos regarding their independence. Due to America's liberalized and Filipinized rule, the Filipinos were left in a web of political compromise, sycophancy, and manipulation, which independence came as a double-edged sword. The second image was an editorial in the Philippine Star dated December 27, 2016, where it tackled the change of government from unitary to federalism, but opted to change economic policies instead. Many provinces as well as 2 presidents pushed for a change in government for the sole purpose of increasing foreign investors in the local market. According to former President Pinoy, it was a better alternative than to change the Constitution altogether. The Constitution is the law of the land. It has been written and ratified by the Filipino people in the hopes of uplifting the current situation of the masses. The Constitution is still not perfect, but it doesn't mean that it becomes useless. In an ever-changing world, there will come a time when the Constitution may develop loopholes in its provisions. One example is the proposal of one of the House of Representatives subcommittee last January 16, 2017, for the subcommittee led by Lady Representative Vicenta Veloso proposed to remove the word love in the preamble of the current Constitution since love has no space in it. Also, since the Duterte administration has been calling for a character change, there are also proposals of adding the phrase Federal Republic of the Philippines as means of helping Mindanao and as grounds for promoting federalism in the country. The people must stand if the desire for constitutional convention is needed. Although the people's initiative in the 1987 Constitution is vague by definition, this must not deter the citizens to point out the flaws so it can be made better.
Hey y'all, come look at this.
Agrarian Reform of 1987 Constitution, Article 8, Section 4. This act shall be known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1987. Section 2, Declaration of Principle and Policies. It is policy of the state to pursue a comprehensive agrarian reform program, or also known as CROP. The welfare of the landless farmers and farm workers will receive the highest consideration to promote social justice and to move the nation towards sound rural development and industrialization and the establishment of cultivatorship of economic-sized farms as the basis of Philippine agriculture. To this end, a more equitable distribution and ownership of land with due regard to the rights of landowners, to just compensation, and to the ecological needs of the nation shall be undertaken to provide farmers and farm workers with the opportunity to enhance their dignity and improve the quality of their lives through greater productivity of agricultural lands. The Agrarian Reform Program is founded on the right of farmers and regular farm workers who are landless to own directly or collectively the lands they till, or in the case of other farm workers, to receive a just share of the fruits thereof. To this end, the state shall encourage and undertake the just distribution of all agricultural lands subject to the priorities and retention limits set forth in this Act. In this Act, having taken into account ecological, developmental, and equity consideration and subject to the payment of just compensation, the state shall respect the right of small landowners and shall provide incentives for voluntary land sharing.
Agrarian and Natural Resources Reform. Section 4. The state shall by law undertake an agrarian reform program founded in the right of farmers and regular farm workers who are landless to own directly or collectively the lands they till, or, in the case for other farm workers, to receive a just share of the fruits thereof. In determining retention limits, the state shall respect the right of small landowners. The state shall further provide incentives for voluntary land sharing. Section 5. The state shall recognize the right of farmers, farm workers, and landowners, as well as cooperatives and other independent farmers' organizations, to participate in the planning, organization, and management of the program, and shall provide support to agriculture through appropriate technology and research, and adequate financial, production, marketing, and other services. Section 6. The state shall apply the principles of agrarian reform or stewardship, whenever applicable in accordance with law, in the disposition or utilization of other natural resources, including lands of the public domain under lease or concession, suitable to agriculture, subject to prior rights, homestead rights of small settlers, and the rights of indigenous communities to their ancestral lands.
So, in addition, the state may resettle landless farmers and farm workers in its own agricultural states, which shall be distributed to them in the manner provided by law.
Section 7. The state shall protect the rights of subsistence fishermen, especially of the local communities, to the preferential use of the Commonwealth marine and fishing resources, both inland and offshore. It shall provide support to such fishermen through appropriate technology and research, adequate financial production and marketing assistance, and other services. The state shall also protect development and conserve such resources. The protection shall extend to the offshore fishing grounds of subsistence fishermen against foreign intrusion. Fish workers shall receive a just share from their labor in the utilization of marine and fishing resources. Section 8. The state shall provide incentives to the landowners to invest the proceeds of the agrarian reform program to promote industrialization, employment creation, and privatization of public sector enterprises. Financial instruments used as payment for their lands shall be honored as equity in enterprises of their choice. Tax come from the Latin word taxo, is defined as a mandatory contribution to the state treasury to be used in a various upkeeps or services of the state, as well as the government is responsible for the collection of these contributions. Taxation is the way the government operates to gain taxes from its people, and it has several ways of doing so.
Revenue is the money collected by the government for their use. This is the most common form of taxation in the country, as it is the tax mostly associated with income tax. It funds most of the national projects of the country, such as supplying a budget for a public school improvement, a budget for scientific research, and so on. Redistribution is the money given to the poor as aid for their poverty. Although hardly felt, it provides leverage for the poor to uplift their economic struggles by donating money to those in need. Most non-government organizations have donation drives to give to their beneficiaries. Representation is the money presented to the people in public. This comes in forms of projects sponsored by the government, but some, according to late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago and former Senator Francis Escudero, have been using this method to drastic means, such as placing the officials' names on ambulances, trash bins, or even street lights, giving the impression that the projects were funded personally by said officials. Hence, the anti-EPA law was made to regulate this. Repricing is the money added to certain products to various uses. The government controls the products' prices in order to decrease consumption of products known to debilitate or weaken the people's health, such as the implementation of the sin tax law where tobacco and liquor-based products have higher prices in order to reduce cases of lung and liver cancer to the general public. It can also be used to help people buy the necessary materials for survival, such as the prices of the local market for meat, vegetables, seafood, and many more.
The history of taxation in the Philippines also became the history of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, or the BIR. The Philippines has a maximum income tax of 32% and a corporate tax of 30%, and one of the highest in the world, especially for the average worker. Elaborate further by presenting the Philippines taxation. The problems regarding taxation have not changed, if not slightly improved.
Philippine taxation in editorials. The first image was an editorial made by the Philippine Free Press on March 11, 1922. It depicts the Filipinos in the country's economic worst during the Great Depression of the 1920s. With the collapse of the global economy after the economic boom of First World War, many Filipinos were left unable to pay taxes, particularly the farmers. The wages and profits of many dropped due to a lack of export. The taxes, however, remained constant. Thus, many suffered during 1920 to 1921, socially and financially. The second image was an editorial in the Sun Star dated December 29, 2017, where it tackled the implementation of the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion, or the TRAIN law, which has been implemented on January 1, 2018. It stated that all who have income of 250,000 pesos and below will be exempted from income tax, but other controlled products will have a surge for price hikes. On the political ground, tax reforms have always been shied away by some elected officials. An example of it would be the Arroyo administration. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo endured and took the reins of shouldering the criticisms of the masses regarding the value-added tax, or VAT, but it was one way her administration could get its funding for its infrastructure projects.
The Philippines has one of the highest corporate tax in Southeast Asia, which is capped at 30%. The Philippines also has one of the highest maximum income tax of 32%. But, despite the highest tax, the country suffers much poverty because the money the taxpayers is not pulled properly towards the benefit of the masses. Early Filipinos have been paying taxes since the pre-colonial times, but corruption hadn't been that rampant back then. Taxes always affect commodities. VAT and excise taxes are the ones that affect the prices of such products. With the introduction of the TRAIN law last January 1, 2018, the taxpayers who have now lower income are now tax-free. But it added a new surges of price hikes to compensate for that loss, making the exemption always non-existent. That's all. Thank you.